Hey everybody and welcome back. It is me and Ty and we are back to give you our thoughts on last week's Game of Thrones episode, and guess what? We have opinions, right Ty?
I know I do.
Yes. So for those opinions, stay tuned. We got another podcast for you. Hey everybody, welcome back. I am Nathan and we got Ty live from Taiwan. Hello. In all disclosure, this is the second time we're recording this podcast. I think we can admit our technical efficiencies, or mine.
How could you give it away? Spoilers.
I know. It's just, there's hilarity. You got to learn from a 45-minute podcast that is just silent. So instead of uploading a 45-minute silent film, I thought we'd come back and do this again.
Yeah, well, I kind of like the silent film idea, the mise-en-scene kind of thing.
That's something like that, mise-en-scene. That's 2 weeks in a row we've talked about that, right?
Did we talk about that last time?
I believe we did.
It's a film school throwback.
We're fancy. All right, so we are going to talk about last Sunday's Game of Thrones episode and get you ready for this week. And the most important thing I want to go over is last week I warned you all. I told you that Ty was unnecessarily optimistic, not a sign that we usually see from him, and he was giving you the wrong idea that Ty loves all things. And so I'm just going to give you the platform right now. Hey Ty, what did you think of Game of Thrones this past Sunday?
Well, let me tell you, Sundance is usually the time when we sit through all these kind of heavy-handed things and I start to hate everything. And it's just been so long since Sundance that I forgot what it's like to truly despise just a piece of garbage and to wonder how something even got put, in the mix. Sundance sometimes is about who you know, and you're in the club forever. Just like the director of this episode, Mr. Nutterbutter, he got in way early in season 3, whatever, and somehow they're still bringing him out here and letting him wheel out the garbage, and it was awful. I hated every single second of this episode, and it may very well be the worst episode, which contrasts greatly with last week's amazing episode.
There are far more worse episodes of Game of Thrones. Don't.
Okay, ready? Top 5 worst episodes of Game of Thrones.
That's too much.
Number 5.
That'll be another podcast. Pretty much maybe every show where Arya was in Bravos and doing the exact same thing over and over and over again.
That was great.
No, it wasn't. Ty.
Reek, episode 1. Number 4, counting down. Second appearance of Reek.
Okay, well, that's another podcast. That's a good idea. We'll have to do that. Okay, so you didn't like it. That's the verdict here.
Oh, it was absolute trash, and I think that I don't even know how it even got past the writers. They're just wiping their I don't want to say any sort of bad language, but they're wiping their butts with George R. R. Martin's masterpiece here.
Okay. Yes. But, all right. Well, hey, that's what Ty thinks. I will be honest. When the show was happening, I was enjoying it. Game of Thrones is a ride. It's an experience. And so anytime that there's a new episode and we're seeing things for the first time, like my adrenaline's pumping, I'm having a good time. I enjoyed this, I thought. And there were things that were kind of frustrating and a little upsetting. But then when the episode was over, I was just exhausted. Like, I was just worn out. And usually what I'll do is I'll jump on, like, Twitter to see what people are thinking. And me and my fiance Taylor will talk about it and we'll kind of theorize. But at the end of this episode, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to go on Twitter. Like, I was just exhausted. And I thought I was exhausted because there was a lot of storylines going on, a lot of heavy conversation. But I think what it turned out is I was just, like, beaten down and kind of, like, just taken advantage of to a certain extent by a show I thought I loved. And it just like, Arya to Gendry and Jaime to Bran, I felt used and abused and just left with my expectations of something greater.
More like Jaime to Cersei. Like, this week's episode, we were Cersei, after Jaime wanted round 2 and to make this child number 4, and we got bent over the proverbial TV and just had it given to us by Jaime Lannister, who is David Nutter and the whole writing crew behind Game of Thrones. I mean, even from the get-go, this was such an awful episode. It starts off with Gendry becoming the king of, he got land somewhere, right? Storm's End. I don't even know where Storm's End is.
It's at the end of Storm. Duh.
And I was like, okay, fine, I can understand this. Like, this is a cool little plot point. That'll come back. But then you just start going into all this, like, weird, like, fan service crap with Brienne and Jamie kind of getting together, and then you have all sorts of weird things are going on. I don't know what's going on. I'm super confused with this episode, and I thought I knew where the series was going, but now I'm not sure, and I'm really scared about what's about to happen.
My biggest problem of the episode was the scene with Bran. I was so taken aback. Like, this entire storyline, I thought was going to be one of the biggest things that happened. And we got the little, like, foreshadow of go to kill these brothers. And, like, as an audience member, you're like, oh, no, is this going to happen? And I kind of compared it to when Brienne and the Hound fight a few seasons back. Like, it's two characters you love, and you don't want either one of them to die. You don't want either one of them to get hurt, but you don't know what to root for. But they're fighting, and so something's going to happen. So it's like, this is going to happen again. Like, Bran's going to go, and he's going to have to make a decision, and they're either going to have to defend themselves and kill him, or he's going to kill one of the brothers. But no, he just walks in and he's like, hey, who's going to pay me more money? And they're like, we'll pay you more. And he's like, all right. And then that's it.
And we're not in a position to give you any sort of land or anything. Like,
no,
we are
not at all.
Lowest on the totem pole here. So yeah, thanks for arguing with us.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
But I have an idea. Killed one of them. I'm going to go to the guy who murdered the queen's brother and have him give me land. Like, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, that'd be great. That's going to work.
Murder father, yeah.
Yeah, or maybe his brother, because that might work too.
Yeah.
You know, their whole family essentially wiped out the Targaryens, but, whatever. Kingslayer, Queenslayer, same thing.
Yeah, so I've got something exciting for you. It's a metaphor, Ty.
Oh, no.
Yes, so this kind of dawned on me, and it made me kind of have a realization. Ty, you know my love of wrestling, right?
Except for wrestling movies, such as the Rowdy Piper movie, They Live, or Jungle Ground, which I just thought of at this very moment.
You coming after my credibility movie. Again. You just coming after me hard, Ty. It's fine. I'll see it. I promise. That'll be what we start doing a podcast on after Game of Thrones. We'll just talk about They Live over and over again.
That's fine. I'm fine with that.
So, okay, I like wrestling. Wrestling is my guilty pleasure. It's my thing. There's a lot of things going on in the world that really weigh me down and get me bummed. And so sometimes I just need to put that all to the side, sit on my couch and just turn off my brain and just let things go out. But I still get attached to them. And this is what wrestling is. Wrestling is multiple storylines, juggling all at once, kind of making you suspend your disbelief and just having things go on. Exactly. But what'll happen every once in a while is you'll get attached to a character and they'll have a storyline, and then all of a sudden they'll just do something that doesn't make any sense. And you're watching, it's like, there's no logic there. And then you see something happen like the next week and you're like, oh, that's why they made him suddenly become this awful human, because they had to get to this point. And it makes you just like kind of feel stupid. And they also just, it's so predictable. Like, you always know what's going to happen. Like, I'll lean over and be like, okay, this is what's going to happen. These people are going to come out because they're trying to set up this match. And it's just like, I've seen this done a million times, but I still watch it because it's just like a fun ride with no weight and no intensity. And Game of Thrones is wonderful because it is wonderful. It is wonderful. And I used to watch it because I thought it was this incredible act of writing and genius and unpredictability, and I never knew. And that's kind of when the show was carrying alongside the books. And now that we've gotten to this final season where they're rushing it for who knows why, we'll get there. It's not what I watched Mad Men for, or even Breaking Bad when it's at its best. This incredible literature that's being played out in front of our eyes. It's kind of become wrestling. Like, it's just WWE Westeros. And it's kind of disappointing.
Well, I think that's a good metaphor, actually. And essentially, like, the first few seasons, you were on the playground telling all your friends that, no, wrestling's real. They jump off of the ladders. The cage matches, those aren't made of plastic. Like, they're taking real hits. And everyone's telling you, no, it's fake, it's fake. Everyone knows it's fake. And then finally, it's like,
it's real to me, damn it, Ty.
Guess what? It's fake. It's all fake. Like, you love this thing, and it's all garbage. We planned it from the very get-go. And your heart's broken. And this episode just broke your heart. It's like that dude that came out during the old Ric Flair interview back in the day with the Stormtrooper helmet, and I don't remember what his name was, but
like
he was supposed to be this like crazy bad guy. Yeah, and then he just broke through the set, like tripped, his helmet fell off, like everybody's laughing, and that's what happened. Like, everybody involved with this is that guy, and they've just ruined at least this storyline for me. So I really hope they can pick it up. There's only 2 episodes left, and our boy Sapachik, Michael
Sapachnik.
Sputnik. Yeah, he's coming. Sounds like an NHL player or something.
Borderline offensive, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, but whatever. And so I don't know. There was just so much wrong with this episode, and it's really, as much as I like your wrestling metaphor, it's a lot like poker, and they showed their hands. I know that they're bluffing and that they don't have any good cards, and I'm really worried. I've said that a couple times already.
I am not to the point that you are in terms of throwing it away and contemplating if I'm going to watch it. No, I know, but it's still a fun ride. Like, we're still on the ship. Like, we're all going to die anyway, so let's just go out in a blaze of fire. And that's kind of how I feel about this show. Is it's hard for me to get really worked up and afraid of who's going to die in the show when I know we only get 2 episodes left of them anyway. And there's no, like, end game in sight. And I don't know if that's a product of bad writing and the fact that they've kind of gutted all the characters we've loved the most. Like, I still have those reactions about Tyrion. I don't want Tyrion to die at all. But, like, Jon Snow, I don't really care anymore.
He's the only one.
Yeah, I know. And
no, you don't care about any of these characters anymore, so you don't care who dies.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on. I have a special segment today. It is called What in the Hell Are They Doing? Like, we should get that in, like, really big, bold letters.
Is there music? Do you have music for this?
Yeah, it's like, kind of like The Price is Right. Do-do-do-do-do. What the hell are
they doing? What the hell are they doing?
So what I'm going to do is we're going to go through a few characters, and I'm going to ask you, what in the hell are they doing? What are they thinking? Why? These are all the questions. The very first one, I'm going to start on top with your favorite character of all time in the entire show, Bran. What?
I love him.
What is Bran? Why? Huh?
It goes Bran, Reek. I don't even know who number 3 would be, but the Tarly girl.
No, I think it's the Starbucks cup that's on in front of Danny. That is
that was a obvious product placement. I think that was intentional. I don't think that was a mistake.
I don't think I've kind of started to wonder too.
But Bran, as far as the Bran thing, I really, it's called A Song of Fire and Ice, and I really think that Bran is somehow important. Like they keep pushing this mythology of the Night King and the folks beyond the wall, and it'd be really silly for them to deal with it the way they did, and having not really addressed it, and to not have it be some sort of central plot of this whole thing. Because really, it was a throwaway plot. It means nothing to anything that happens. So I'm hoping Bran's going to be really important in the next 2 episodes.
I hope
Even though I hate him, and he can't walk, which is fine. I'm not trying to say anything about the disabled, but what is he? Is he going to turn into a crow or like a tree? Is he going to turn into a tree? I'm going to be really upset if he turns into a tree.
There has to be something, because otherwise there's just no point, and he serves no another frustration, another thing that infuriated me this episode is the one moment in the show where I could have been captivated by him and so excited, they just cut whenever they had him tell Sansa and Arya that who Jon is, that he's doing his aunt and he's the rightful heir to the throne. And for some reason, the writers and director decided that we didn't need to see that. And I don't know if that's because maybe there's some plan behind that they actually talked and Jon wants Sansa to tell everyone else and that there's a whole plan and now Arya has a mission to do this. Maybe that's it. And they're going to like cut back to it to be like, oh, we all hatched a plan and Jon's actually working against Dany. But that would mean that the show is really intelligent and doing creative things on its own. Dude.
No, I think they just didn't want to waste time explaining that again because they've already talked about it 2 or 3 times. Like,
but we want to see what they think.
And then he had to tell Sam, and they talked about Bran, and then they talk about it again with Tyrion in this episode. So we don't need to hear that story. Oh, well, my dad was this and this and this. Nobody cares. Like, we don't want to waste time. What they did, however, do is have Jaime Lannister give us a list of everything he's ever done, which is the worst, like, expository, like, narration I've ever heard. Not narration, but it was. What is he doing? He's like listing up. Well, I raped this person, and then I also invaded here. We don't care. I don't care about your spoils. Yeah. Also, you raped your sister. You didn't mention that, but yeah, okay.
That's my biggest frustration. Is that was so rushed, and I just don't understand. I don't understand. Like, you're making it hard for your actors to where they have to make like this multi-season character arc that was paid off. Like this reaffirmation that Jaime Lannister is a good person, and then he looks into a fire, and then suddenly he is not who he is anymore.
Is the fire important? You think? Did he get something from the fire?
I think it's just lazy writing. And so I don't know. A part of me thinks that Jaime's still good, and he told that to Brienne so she wouldn't follow him out there. It's a sort of old yeller, like, you're ugly and I hate you. Don't talk to me anymore. So he could go, and because he knows he's the only one that can get to Cersei. We'll see. But that's me giving the show credit, and I need to stop doing that. The show needs to deserve it. So
I hated that. I hate that as soon as like Brienne of Tarth finally gets, the male genitalia inside her, she becomes like this awful stereotype for a helpless woman. And it was a complete character change. It turned 180 degrees. She was never like that. She was never like a crying little girl who was in love. She was never that kind of person.
No.
And for her to become that really set women back, and I'm surprised you're not seeing people get up in arms about
they're there.
any sort.
They're there. Go on Twitter. People are mad. And the dog lovers are furious at Jon Snow for not petting Ghost before he leaves.
I read something on just like an hour ago about this. The director said they didn't include more dog stuff, wolf stuff, direwolf stuff because it's too expensive, and that the CG is really hard to do because they have to blow up the wolves or whatever. I don't know. But that makes no sense. Why do we spend so much time with these awful, like, How to Train Your Dragon, like, things that look like they're from 1990s? Spider-Man 1, the original, was better than...
You had a giant pick up a child, and then the child poke its eye out with a spear. You can afford that, but you can't afford a man to pet a dog? Like, no.
Why didn't we do practical effects dragons? Why are we still doing CG dragons? Like,
I want real
so
direwolves.
Much better if you had, like,
Give me real direwolves right now. You have the budget for it, HBO. I know you do. Okay, so we're going on the next one. We're still on What the Hell Are They Doing? Sansa. What? I love Sansa. Sansa's become like my most improved player of this season. She's smart. She's figuring out. She's the only one that's a step ahead of Cersei. I was digging every single thing that she was doing this season until this episode, where she's undermining her brother. She's stank-eyeing Cersei. I mean, for Daenerys, and we don't... Why? What's her end game? What is she going for? What does she want?
I really like Sansa's character because, parents, when they talk about their children, they never want to say who their favorite one is. And they say, I love all my children. But, like, by watching the show, we are now parents and we're able to come out and actually say how we feel. Like, I hated Sansa. So if I was Sansa's mom and someone said, hey, which daughter do you like most? Like, I hate that one. Not that one. She's so selfish. Like, do you remember how she was in the beginning? She was awful.
Yeah, she was great.
Awful. And now she's like the strongest, like, most reliable, and probably the best actor this season, arguably. But I'm really excited. I think she's just kind of a placeholder for her mom, though. I'm not so certain she's going to play a big role. I think she just wants northern independence. She's like, the Starks are like Ireland, right? Isn't that what it is, essentially? Ireland and Scotland, and they just really want kind of like Irish independence or Scottish independence. Whether it'll happen or not is up to Brexit, which is the next episode. But I think that's what she is. I think that she's not going to be as important as maybe you think, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. All right. The next person, what the hell are they thinking? Daenerys. What's she doing? Is it the laziest metaphor ever that we're supposed to be like, oh, she's becoming the Mad Queen, just like her dad. I didn't see
words,
this.
But she's a girl, so it's queen.
I know. I don't get it. I don't understand why suddenly she's an idiot and she has no military strategy, that she's now suddenly begging Jon when she's been the most strong-willed person ever. And she's been in love before, but she still maintained her strength. But for some reason, now that she knows it's her nephew, she becomes subservient and submissive. Like, it just doesn't... Nothing adds up. Nothing does.
Well, I think before she had motivation, considering, like, she had all these dragons, and her through line through the first few seasons was, I gotta protect my dragons. Like, this is my thing. I gotta make sure they're okay. But then she just lost 2 out of 3. So, I don't know. I really hate her now. I don't like her at all, and I feel really bad for Emilia Clarke. Is that how you say it?
Nailed it.
Because she's not getting any good lines, and the directors are not treating her very well as far as like camera time and things like that. So Game of Thrones is always really good about reaction shots and like showing so much without words. But this episode was awful. It was just it was like the worst BBC stage play I've ever seen. It was like off Broadway.
Yeah.
Like, almost to New Jersey. That's how far off Broadway it was. It was just so awful.
I'm in agreement. All right, so the very last one, what the hell are they thinking? HBO /writer staff /creative decision makers. why did they decide to do this with the last 2 seasons? Why did they think that it was a good idea to go 13 episodes to ignore all travel logic and time management, and then just like, is it a budget thing? Is that the reason why they're like, okay, we need to wrap this up? I can't see that being the case, because this is HBO's cash cow. Like, why didn't they just extend it to 2 10-episode seasons or 3 7-episode seasons and just take time? It feels rushed. It feels rushed on a writing aspect. It feels rushed from a cast aspect. Like, these actors are being decided to make like everything that usually we got to see play out before, they just have to do in their head and then make us believe it. I just don't. Why do you think they made this decision?
And they could have done it in 2 seasons. They took a year off, did they not? So it's like, why don't you give me 2 8-episode seasons and just kind of stretch out the plot a little bit? Because I feel like they're just kind of pushing everything together, and this timeline is not making any sense, and the character arcs are way too rushed. And I think that they're just trying to hit all these little spots on the timeline, and they're not really having time to flesh out the story and make it sound feasible or even interesting. It's really poor writing, and I want to say it's a cash grab. But then why would they cut it down to 6 episodes?
Yeah.
Because they get paid by the episode. So it can't be that. They have to have good intentions. But I think it's because George R.R. Martin didn't write that far. And now they're just kind of like, what do we do? We're not good at fleshing out anything. You had a source material where it's like every scene, every character had hundreds of pages that you could kind of pull from. And now they're just pulling from a bunch of like interns at the HBO office. And it's not working out at all.
Yeah, my whole philosophy is I feel like they got to a certain point. They're like, we don't know how to end this. We're just going to make this decision. People are probably going to be upset, but there's really no way we can end the show without people being upset. So let's just get it done quick, and then we can start 3 other spinoffs and make all the money in the world. And that way we can have 3 sources of revenue as opposed to just 1. And let's just get it done because they're going to be pissed at us anyway. And I think that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, but maybe it's like a Seinfeld scenario where it's like everybody that ever worked on Game of Thrones will never work again, especially the writers. Maybe it's, so...
Hey, have you heard of Julia Louis-Dreyfus in Veep? Like, she's doing okay.
No.
Yeah, she only has won every Emmy.
I don't watch Veep. What are you talking about?
Okay, so I made you come up with questions for me. So you've got some questions for me.
I do have 2 questions. The first one is going to be, you were talking about last week how you were very disappointed with the kill count, meaning that a lot of people survived who probably shouldn't.
Plot armor.
Grey Worm.
That's what we call it.
Yeah, plot armor. Oh, I saw somebody use that metaphor.
It's beautiful.
It's great, and it rings true. Who do you think is going to bite the bullet? Well, not bullet, but the sword in the next 2 episodes? Because we gotta. I'm saying we gotta cleave down about half of these people.
I think, that's a good question. I think Clegane Bowl is happening this week. It's got to happen. It can't happen in the last one. And I've kind of thought about it. I've kind of reversed my stance. I think they're both going to die. I think that the Hound and the Mountain are equal. They're I just feel like they're gonna fight, and then maybe Hound will get the kill, but he'll have damage that he can't survive, and he'll die. And so I think they're both gonna go. My big prediction, I won't go into all the people. My big prediction is I think next week's episode is going to end with Jaime and Cersei together, and then Jaime's going to try to kill Cersei, but Jaime's going to die in some fashion. I don't know if Cersei will be the one that kills her, or if the Maester guy slips something into his drink, or maybe Varys is there and he kills Jaime. I don't know if there's some big twist, or maybe Littlefinger shows up. Who knows? But I think the episode's going to end with Cersei standing over Jaime's dead body, and this really emotional moment that leads to the big climax of the last episode. That's my big prediction.
All right. So I'm thinking you're right. I think Mountain's going to kill the Hound, honestly. And then I think I just changed my mind. Gendry is going to kill the Mountain. It's kind of like a callback, because I think they had kind of a thing back in the day, or was it? I can't remember.
Gendry's had a lot of things.
Gendry's going to kill the Mountain.
Yes.
Yeah. Cersei's going to kill Jaime, 100%. But then I think Tyrion's going to kill Cersei. That's where I think it's going.
That's where I think it could lead to. It's possible. Yeah, so. It's good.
Then my next big question is just about the future of HBO, because they got bought out by AT&T, the owners of the AT&T Center, and I'm really worried for the future. For such a long time, HBO has been a purveyor of really, really good TV shows, whether it be Deadwood, which is now releasing the Deadwood movie, which means I have to finally watch Deadwood because I've never seen it. Sopranos, you had 6 Feet Under, Curb was theirs, right?
Yep.
Sex and the City was theirs, and Entourage was theirs. So they really dipped their hand into every kind of pot, and they never say, okay, well, we did Sopranos, now let's do 100, Donnie Brasco spin-offs or whatever. And so what's next for them after this? Because I'm really worried that they're going to get bogged down by AT&T.
I don't worry, and I think and my prediction is kind of, HBO always reinvents themselves. They always have had this moment where, like when Sex and the City was ending, they're like, what are we going to do next? And then The Sopranos came, and then what are we going to do next? And then like True Blood came.
Carnival.
Yeah, exactly. But they just keep throwing things at the wall, and a lot of things stick. And obviously, they're going to have their spin-offs with Game of Thrones. They're going to do 3 of them, at least. So the chance of one of those 3 being good is pretty high. Watchmen's coming out. I love it. It's my favorite graphic novel of all time. The movie was garbage, so there's only room for improvement. It's Damon Lindelof, who... it means they'll probably come up with 1 or 2 great episodes, 2 great seasons, and then it'll probably tail off. Barry
He's
is
the LeBron James. He's the LeBron James of the industry. Like, poor third act. Poor third act.
That's a hot take you just took there. Barry is the best show they have right now. Barry is a far better product than Game of Thrones, and you need to be watching Barry. So that's got promise. That has legs. In terms of like pop culture phenomenon, though, I don't know, but they've always seemed to find it, and I don't think AT&T owning them is going to change too much. HBO always has promise.
Well, speaking of Bill Hader, he's going to be playing one of the grown-up kids in the new It second one. I just watched that trailer about
it looks awesome.
5 seconds ago.
Yeah, I just saw it too.
Now, the director of that movie is also slated, if you look at his IMDb, to direct another adaptation of a film called Attack on Titan. This is true. I didn't just make it up.
He is
directing this, supposedly. Yeah, there it is right there, Attack on Titan.
I see it.
Available on Netflix as of January last year. But you can see it on Crunchyroll. I don't know why you're not watching this show, man.
I know.
This is Game of Thrones for Japanese audiences.
I'm sorry. My life is busy. Shout out to the fiance. She graduates her master's today. And then her sister graduates college on Saturday. My little brother just graduated from the police academy. So things are busy. I'm a traveling man. I'm all over the place, but I will find time to watch an episode. I'm a traveling man. I'm going to try. Okay, so we got to wrap up. 2 questions for you. Okay. All in-game questions. Where does Arya wind up in this season? What is she going for? Does she survive? What's her big thing?
I wanted to believe that she was actually Littlefinger, and I was really holding on to that theory of yours. But now with this last episode, I don't think it's possible. She knows too much. A girl knows too much. I'm hoping that she's gonna go off on some sort of journey, and we can have a spin-off series where she goes back to Davos, so we can kind of learn about the mythology of the other places, which I think they're doing anyway. But I don't know what she's doing. She doesn't make sense in King's Landing. She doesn't make sense in the land of the Starks. She doesn't fit in anywhere. So the only way I can think of is she's not going off on her own. She's got to die. She makes no sense anywhere else.
Okay, and then finally, week before next, and next week we'll have really big predictions because hopefully we'll have some sort of idea what the last episode is. Who is your favorite to be on the Iron Throne? What's going to be the last scene? Right now, your thoughts this week.
Oh no! When we talked about this the first time we ran through it, I thought it was going to be Gendry. But I think you might have swayed me to the Tyrion camp. I think he's the most likely candidate. That doesn't mean he will be. But nobody else is likable, and nobody else makes sense. Jon Snow can't be on the throne. He's a zombie.
No.
And the Lord of Light said, once I'm done with you, I take your life. He did that with Melisandre. He did that with the other light guy. Nobody knows his name. Oh, you know his name.
I got
Mr.
it.
Barracks.
One of us needs to know it.
The Barracks. Yeah, he didn't make it either, so I don't think Jon Snow's going to make it. And you don't want a zombie on...
Well, you don't want someone that doesn't want it. You don't want someone that doesn't want it. The show would be so stupid if this whole thing is who will sit on the Iron Throne, and the last episode is the guy that's like, I don't want to be king. Why are you doing this? I don't want it. You'd be kind of like, what? Why did I watch this?
I want them to melt the Iron Throne. I'm hoping they're going to melt the Iron Throne, and that it gets melted by that fire that Cersei has baked up. She's going to throw that out next episode. So I hope that the throne melts, and then we don't have an Iron Throne, and that's a really good screw you to the fans.
No, but I think that's where because the whole thing is about Cersei saying, I want to break the wheel. I don't want the wheel to keep rolling. I want the wheel to be destroyed. How do you destroy the wheel? By creating fairness amongst all of the ways. You can have Sansa up in the north. You can have Tyrion in King's Landing. Cersei, I think, will be dead, obviously. Daenerys, I don't think will be still around. But if she is, she can go to Dragonstone and hang out with her one dragon. Like, it doesn't...
I got it.
Oh, he's got it.
I just thought of it. Well, we're going to get like Loose Change up in here on, you know, that documentary Loose Change? Cersei is going to throw the fire on her own people and blame Daenerys and say that she did it. And then she becomes an enemy of the people, and then you have to kill Daenerys. That's how Daenerys gets out of the picture. Got it. I got just Loose Change this up here.
You heard it here first on the NateFlix podcast. Well, you'll be tested. We'll hold you to it. I made a few predictions last week. I predicted that Dorne was going to come back in the picture, and the Prince of Dorne is behind them.
Well,
and
they mentioned it. Yeah,
for sure. And then a friend and I were talking about how we thought Gilly might have been pregnant. We were right. She had the puffy cheeks. We caught on to that. So we like to make predictions here.
Panera.
Okay. Well, that's it. I think we kind of went over everything. Next week we'll get this up a little bit sooner. We'll definitely have some opinions. Hopefully a little bit happier. Hopefully a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, our dude's coming back, so I think we will be.
Okay. Well,
Sapachik.
Yes. And then hopefully your dude Sirio sword instructor will come back too.
Sirio de Bergerac is coming back, and I'm so pumped.
We can only hope. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next week, and hopefully Game of Thrones will be good, and you will be happy and less angry and angsty. All right, we'll see you guys next week.